Yes, guys, hope you're all doing well. Welcome to the Double Game Week 24 mid-game week review, we're going to call it, because, of course, we still got Chelsea-West Ham Monday night, and we've got the second part of the double game week between Liverpool and Everton in a week's time, I think it is. So we still got loads and loads to happen between now and then. But I thought on a Sunday night be a perfect opportunity just to sit back, reflect on what's happened so far, and try and come to some common ground on what we should do going forward over the next few weeks. Because double game week 24 felt like quite a ridiculous game week. Now, of course, just to cast your minds back, a lot of us were going to triple captain Mo Salah. That was pretty locked in for everybody. Then we had the double game week 25 announcement where we don't actually know what the fixtures are going to be because we're waiting on the EFL Cup semi-final results. So that thrown a spanner in the works, and a lot of us ended up changing the triple captain to the assistant manager. People went Moyes, people went Slot. It was a little bit chaotic. So I'm really excited to go through how my team's gone, but importantly, how did you guys get on? So first and foremost, hello wherever you are in the world. Please do let me know in the chat how many points you have scored so far in double game week 24. And of course, actually what you done. Did you triple captain? Did you activate your assistant manager? If you did, who did you put the assistant manager on? Was it Moyes? Was it Arne Slot? Let me know in the chat. I'll be really interested to know what direction managers went in. And of course, I will answer all of the questions in the chat. I also want to cover off just some of the key things going into this game week. So we have to talk about Chris Wood. Is he essential for our teams? We've got to talk about Trent. Obviously injured. What do we do going forward with that? If you've got your assistant manager chip still available, do you activate it in game week 25 going forward? Just trying to find a pen so I can write down a few things. Obviously, I have not prepared myself as well as I should have done jumping onto this stream, but we've got loads to talk through on this stream, so I'm really excited to go through it. FPL Yellow Army saying here, evening mate, hope you're doing well mate. Only content creator streaming at 8, so shout out to you. FPL family at 9, I think that is it. Yeah, I think a few of the boys put videos up, but of course, once you guys have finished this one, jump on the FPL family, which should kick off at 9 o'clock. Ben, hope you're doing well. Asking Visitor Wood. I think we will cover off Chris Wood very early on because I think he is quite a popular player that managers are going into. So we do need to talk about him as well. Animations, as always, my friend, hope you're doing well. Hope everyone is well, having a solid week. So can't complain. Great evening to have this stream. Yeah, it's always even better when you've had a great week jumping on these sort of streams because everything feels good. And it's worth noting right now, we'll cover it off in a minute. I'm actually on a red arrow, even though I activated my assistant manager chip. So we do need to touch on how we are feeling about that situation. Charlotte saying, Benchwood, worst decision I've made this season for sure. We move. And that is exactly the mindset you need to have right now. Of course, benching Wood is never an ideal situation, but it is what it is sometimes. Don't let it dictate your weekend. Otherwise, it can really put a downer on things. And it is what it is, end of the day, with those sort of situations. I don't think anybody in their right mind thought that Nottingham Forest were going to win 7-0 against Brighton. I think that is probably one of the best results we have seen this season by far. I know we've seen upsets, but just for general scoreline, it's one of the most ridiculous ones we are going to see this season. 7-0 is outrageous. So first of all, I want to bring up my current points, and hopefully my team is similar to some of those out there, and we can all cry at the fact that we haven't had a fantastic game week. Now, of course, when you look at it right now, 80 points probably looks okay. Like, that's not bad at all. Now, I do need to put it out there for those that do own and die. We've just been given a very late bonus point on top of it. So, as you can see here, and die ended up getting 2 for 90 minutes played, 4 for the goals scored. Previously, it was only 1 bonus point. Just as I was going to start this live stream, I refreshed the page and we've been given an extra bonus point for and die, which is absolutely sensational. So all those points add up at the end of the season. So we will take that and just pray that for some reason it doesn't change. Let me know in the chat if I've gone completely mental and that second bonus point was already there. But I feel like they have gifted to that us very recently. So 80 points for the team. Quick reminder, I made really early moves. I've done Anderson to Mikalenko, and I also done João Pedro to and die, which proved very profitable. And then, of course, we had the whole double game week 25 announcement. So that threw a spanner in the works, and I ended up selling Alisson to Pickford in order to enable Arne Slot into the team. On reflection, yes, the triple captaincy pick would have been more profitable so far, but on reflection, I'm more than happy with the moves that I did make. 80 points, Pickford being a standout alongside Mykolenko. Trent with the injury, we will touch on that in a minute because I know a lot of people are panicking about Trent right now. Semenyo, Gordon, Vista, Isak being really, really disappointing. And of course, Cole Palmer still to play alongside the 5 doublers and Arnie slot. And now that we haven't got the triple captain on Salah, I actually am praying he does blank in this second part of the double, and we actually have people like Szoboszlai and all that rack up the points. Otherwise, it isn't going to be good if he does get the points in there. It was 7 until an hour ago for Ndai. Andrew saying, okay, cool. So yeah, I'm not dreaming it. Ndai has picked up another bonus point, which is fantastic. So as you can see, 80 points. And I'm just going to quickly show you how my team is currently looking for game week 25. Again, we have to remember, I'm going to scroll it down here. The deadline is the 14th of February. So right now, it's only the 2nd. So if you are an FPL manager who is active, loves the stuff, it might be a good opportunity for maybe just to switch off for a little bit. Now, that's never ideal, me saying that when I try and do FPL content. But my biggest advice right now is to try not make any early moves, because we are going to learn so much over the next 12 days. We're going to have FA Cup games, which can always lead to injuries. But importantly, we're going to have the second leg of the EFL Cup. So let me just put this up for you right now on your screens. Here we go. So as you can see here, on the 5th February, which is Wednesday, we are going to have Newcastle versus Arsenal. And then on the 6th of February, we are going to have Liverpool versus Spurs. Now, quick reminder, Newcastle are currently winning 2-0 against Arsenal. A lot of us are assuming that Newcastle will get the job done and get into the final. However, after what we saw on the weekend with Newcastle losing and Arsenal putting 5 goals into Man City, it is anyone's game. I really do think this is going to be not an absolute lock-in that Newcastle are going to reach the final. Meanwhile, Liverpool are expected to overturn that game against Spurs. I know Spurs had a positive result today. However, I still think Liverpool are much better than that of Spurs, and I would expect Liverpool to progress into the EFL Cup final. And those results there are going to dictate what the double game week 25 is going to look like. So a quick reminder, if we get a situation where Liverpool get to the final, then we will have a double game week of Liverpool and Aston Villa. And what I'll do right now is put up the projected fixtures for you, just so you can have a bit more of a visual learning. This is taken from FPL.team in collaboration with Planet FPL. Make sure you do check it out. So you can see here, game week 25, if we do get what the bookies are predicting is a Newcastle-Liverpool final, then that means Liverpool versus Aston Villa will be in game week 25. Villa will have a double of Ipswich and Liverpool, which is great. And we will have Liverpool doubling against Wolves and Aston Villa. Hence why a lot of managers use the assistant manager chip on slot in order to effectively have a double game week in 24 and a double game week in 25. Now, of course, if Arsenal overturn Newcastle, then we will have also Arsenal doubling in 25 alongside Chelsea, which will make it very, very interesting. Again, a lot of people anticipating the situation where Arsenal won't get to the final, but that will be really, really interesting if we do get that scenario, because Liverpool, Villa, Arsenal and Chelsea will all then have doubles in game week 25. And that is why it is really, really important to not make any early transfers in your teams right now. If we take a look at the current most bought players for game week 25 here, you can see we have got Kluivert, Wood, Kirkes, Mbeumo and Elanga. Now, all of those, I think, rightly so, are good picks for your FPL teams. However, if you can just wait 5 or 6 days and let these EFL Cup games happen, you will get a better understanding of who is going to double in game week 25. And I don't care what player you're bringing in for game week 25. I think a doubler is just making way more sense to bring into your team. And we don't know exactly who that is going to be. What we do know is while Kluivert is a fantastic buy for game week 25, there's no world that he doubles in game week 25. Same can be said for Wood, same can be said for Kirkes, same can be said for Mbeumo and Elanga. So even though all these players on your screens right now are good buys, if we do get the situation arise where we get these double game weeks anticipated, Villa players suddenly become on the menu with a double in 25. Those that don't have Liverpool, of course, are going to be going there. But what if we do get an unlikely situation happen? Let's say Arsenal do progress to the final. That makes Arsenal players so important with a double in game week 25. It makes maybe a rogue Chelsea player a potential pick. And if we do get the ultimate differential of Spurs progressing to the final, it means Spurs and Fulham will have a double in game week 25. And again, none of those players are currently the most bought, but we are going to want those players in our teams to capitalise on the double game week, especially those Fulham assets that are a little bit cheaper. So this is the big reason why I think you guys need to hold off on your transfers for now and just have a little bit of time just to reflect on what happens over those games. So that is the really important factor. So first of all, let's talk about Chris Wood, because he is currently the second most bought player going into game week 25. And please do let me know in the chat right now if you own Chris Wood, because my hat goes off to you. While a lot of managers were moving away from him, and I think rightly so, Gakpo with a double game week, I think I preferred over Chris Wood for one game against Brighton. Now I know, on reflection, we're all idiots for not owning Chris Wood, but does anybody right now, can they put their hands up and say they predicted Forest winning 7-0? I call you a liar if that is the case. But what we do know about Chris Wood is that he ticks every single box to be a fantastic FPL forward. On penalties, guaranteed game time, playing in a team that he is the talisman in, and a team that effectively just funnels everything through him with quick wingers on the outside. It just all equals goals for Chris Wood. And we saw that in that Brighton game, all combining together. Now, the big question is right now, can you sit there and go without him for game week 25? And I'm going to be that guy to tell you can. Now, I know it sounds a bit stupid off the back of a hat trick, and he is Mr. Consistent. Look at some of these returns here. We've got 12, 9, 8, 12. A couple of blanks here, but regardless, he will score goals in any given fixture. But are these fixtures here good enough for you to be chasing Chris Wood in your team if you haven't owned him already? Fulham away, never an easy place to go to. Newcastle away, once again, not an ideal place, but of course we have seen Newcastle lose in game week 24. Maybe people's perception of St. James's Park is going to change. Then we got Arsenal at home. Man City at home actually isn't too bad after what we saw today. But do I think over the next 4 fixtures this is a priority buy for your teams? I'm going to say no. Please do let me know in the chat whether you think Chris Wood is an essential buy. But as I said, if we get these double game week 25s announced and we have some really interesting ones thrown in the mix, I think that is going to be the priority as opposed to bringing in someone like Chris Wood into your team. So please do let me know in the chat what your thoughts are. I'll be really interested. People are saying totally predicted that result, 7-0. There's no Forest without Wood. Matthew saying that is correct. And FPL Yellow Army saying, of course I own Chris Wood, could never sell him. And yeah, I think if I owned him, I absolutely would be in a position where I'd struggle to sell him. But I understand why people did go there. Mr. T says, first time in 90 years of playing this game, I feel like quitting mid-season. Mr. T, let me know in the chat why that thought is. Is it because of the assistant manager chip, which is causing a bit of a rogue issue? I understand it for some people. It is a bit chaotic what is going on right now. And I can see Daz, though, 88 points with no triple captain or no assistant manager, which is sensational. So yeah, guys, keep putting in the chat how many points you got and, of course, what you are doing. But my conclusion right now on Chris Wood, obviously one of the hot topics going into game week 25, is that, firstly, don't be buying in right now. We're going to gain so much information over the coming days. And 2, no, I don't think he is essential for your teams. I think these fixtures are tricky, and I can't envisage, famous last words, tons and tons of goals for Chris Wood. Of course, his ownership will hurt your overall rank, but I just think we can actually avoid him and be content with it. Maybe another 7-0 happens, but I can happily take that risk going forward. So I will not be buying Chris Wood myself. And what I want to do before we go into the next few kind of like hot topics with players is I want to give us a little bit of an overview on how we are looking for game week 24. What actually happened? What played out? So what I've got here are the underlying numbers for game week 24, just to give you a bit of an idea on who really was just the standout player and maybe the players that were a little bit unlucky. So this is taken from Fantasy Football Fix. I've filtered it based on expected FPL points for just that singular game week. I really want to understand, is there any player that is starting to emerge as just a player we absolutely have to get into our teams? And I know there's a lot of information on these screens here. So if what you're watching on mobile device, maybe an iPad, maybe a PSP, maybe, if it is really hard to actually read it, let me know. I'll try and narrow it up a little bit, zoom into the details, and we can check it out. But remember, guys, you don't tune into this channel for the technical stuff. Otherwise, you'll be going to FPL Focal, that's for sure. I am not your man for that stuff, but I will try my best, of course. So what we want to raise here is a few of the big stuff. So Chris Wood, first and foremost. 3 goals, of course, from 4 shots. That is the story of Chris Wood's season so far. The guy does not average many shots per game, but when he has them, his conversion rate is ridiculous. I think it's hovering around 35% conversion rate. It's outrageous, but we're seeing it over a long enough period right now where, yes, the analytical people will tell you that he is eventually going to run out of steam, but also he's just a good finisher, and he's getting into opportunities where he literally cannot miss. Look at some of the finishes. Look where he's heading the ball from. They're all around the penalty spot or the 6-yard box. They are basically sitters for a man of his quality and confidence right now. 1.77 XG. A quick reminder, of course, we need to take into account penalties. His non-pen XG was 1.01, so still fantastic. It's not like he got lucky with all of his goals. Yes, whenever you score a hat-trick, you are usually lucky to get all 3, but he still put up unbelievable numbers. Now, another player that I wish I could own, but I just couldn't get him into my team, is going to be Mateta. Now, look at his underlying numbers here. 2 goals, 3 shots, 1.46 expected goals. Obviously, both of those coming from real close range. He literally couldn't miss that one from Munoz that set him up on a plate. And he has been an unbelievable pick for managers out there. Now, what we do need to look at is Crystal Palace's fixtures going forward, because I've already expressed my thought on Chris Wood. I don't think he's a desperate buy-in. Now, Crystal Palace are one of those teams that aren't going to be doubling over the coming weeks, but they are at risk if Newcastle progress to the final of maybe having a blank in game week 29, which is not ideal. But I don't think that should put you off over the coming weeks. Everton at home, yes, I know there's a good feel-good factor right now with David Moyes, but I still like Crystal Palace as a team right now. I think that is 2 good teams coming up against one another right now. Fulham away in 26, never ideal, but we can't really rule out Mateta and not scoring in that fixture. And then we got some really good fixtures in Aston Villa and Ipswich before that potential blank in 29, and then Southampton away. So I don't know if there's enough right now for me to sit here and say you have to bring in Mateta. Again, my advice is hold off on transfers right now, but good work to anybody that's owned him, because you've had all the good stuff, and I can see more good stuff happening over the next 4 game weeks. I probably wouldn't be ripping up my teams to bring him in though. Still, if Palace are going to do well, the way the team is functioning right now, everything is going to go through Mateta. It's him or nobody in that Palace team, and it pains me to say that as an Eze owner. I'm ruling out Munoz because he's a defender, and that is a different kind of conversation. But for the attackers, it's Mateta or nobody, really. So I really do like Mateta as a pick. If you can go there, I like it, but I think it's a very, very luxury transfer. Now, Mo Salah, one would argue 2 goals from a 0.89 XG is a little bit lucky. However, how many times have we seen him just bend that ball in the top corner? Sometimes when the XG is really low on a shot like that, it just doesn't take into account things where it's just muscle memory for a player. If I put any player in that situation in the Premier League outside of Mo Salah, they probably don't score it. But Mo Salah, time and time again, has delivered that finish. That even though the XG might have been like 0.1 or 0.15, that is where I have a slight problem with the numbers, because I've seen Mo Salah do that time and time again. And certain players do just break the mould. And I think Mo Salah is one of those in that situation. Not going to talk about Mo Salah. We all know how fantastic he is. Cunha finally back in and amongst the points with that late goal in game week 24. 1.23 XG is fantastic, and the finish that he had was incredible. In terms of the expected numbers outside of that, of course, no penalties for him, so That is basically all we need to know about him there. So with Cunha going forward, 4 shots, we know he's a talisman in the team. If he gets any sort of attack in return, happy days. And he's just signed an extension, so we know he's sticking around with Wolves for at least the next 6 months. What are contracts nowadays after John Duran signed one and now he's gone off to Saudi? So they don't mean too much, but we know he's sticking around for the next few weeks. Is he a buy? Well, as you can see here with Wolves' fixtures in the middle there, Liverpool away, not ideal. Bournemouth away, not ideal. Then I think we could consider them. Fulham, Everton, Southampton, West Ham. We have now sustainability with Cunha, which is a thing that we want. The problem with Cunha is the price has skyrocketed when everybody was on him previously. So I think the best thing for Cunha is just to let it breathe. Let the few weeks happen. If he continues to be the talisman in this team, which I expect him to be, I think from game week 27 onwards, there could be a consideration to bring in Cunha into your teams. Importantly, game week 29 away against Southampton, if there are teams that are blanking in that week, he could be a fantastic differential for those teams. So do have Cunha on your radar, but not until game week 27. I do not think he is necessary. Outside of that, a lot of names here that are just not worth considering for your teams. If you have Everton, brilliant. Are you looking to buy Everton? Absolutely not, because look at the fixtures coming up for them. Palace away, United at home. Actually, that's not too bad. Then we, of course, got Brentford away, Wolves away, West Ham at home. With Everton, I think they're doing well. The double was the time to have them. I can't be sitting here right now suggesting you got to rip up your teams to buy Beto or Ndai. I just cannot be the guy to sit here and say that. Maybe after the next 2 weeks, if they do continue to deliver, then we can consider it. But for me, I can't recommend Everton players in single game weeks alone. Just seeing if there's any stuff in the chat before I move on. I can see here a few people saying, almost sold Wood for Vardy to raise funds for slot. Thank goodness price rose. Yes, forgotten minus. That is what we call what do we call it? Dodging a bullet. That is what we call it. Sorry, it's late on a Sunday. Beto is just all that Ezra said. Own. Beto own. Not sure what that means, but let's get Beto up for those that love a bit of Beto this game week. So the analytical crew are raising a pint tonight after that Beto haul, because he was the one that was coming up in a lot of those models. And at 4.9 million, what an unbelievable value pick he is. Now, 2 goals from 2 shots on a 0.66 XG. Some would argue he overperformed, but what finishes they were. Beto's always one of those players where I know what he looks like. I kind of know how he plays. I have no idea whether he's actually good to score goals or not. Hence why I didn't consider bringing him in. Not being on penalties was enough for me to think, nah, I'm not touching Beto in my team. However, if he continues on a good run of form and Calvert-Lewin is going to be out long term, Beto at 4.9 million could be a fantastic enabler for your teams. But I'm not going to be able to sit here and tell you to buy an Everton forward going into single game weeks and a double in 25. So no, that is not where your money should be going. So I think that's the big players. Let me know while I got the screen up, guys. Any players that you want me to take a look at, please do put it in the chat. I'll cover them off now before we move into another section, because I want to talk about Trent. Obviously going off of that injury, what do we do with him? That's going to be really important. So I'll give it a couple of minutes. If there's any players that you want to check out, this is the Fantasy Football Fix site. I'll get it up on the screens and we can take a quick look. Insane Gamer saying on 145 points with 4 left is ridiculous scores. And you're ranked 7th in the world. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Make sure you tune in to a few more streams, mate, in the future. I want to keep an eye on how you're getting on in the world, mate. I'm very interested. Unfortunately, the Munoz bench, and yes, I was in the same boat with that one. Andrew saying Kulusevski if Spurs double. Yeah, so what I'm going to quickly do is give you guys a quick reminder of the potential fixtures if we were to get them. So let's just get this up for you on here, because it is worth considering for what happens. So here's the fixture analyzer here. I'm just going to really condense it a minute just to get us into a shorter time frame. So if Spurs progress to the final, as we discussed, Spurs and Fulham will double in game week 25. So we do need to actually think about what would happen if that situation arises. So Spurs here would play Man United, of course, in game week 25, and that would be alongside Fulham. Let me put game week 29 up. The reason being is game week 29 for Spurs is going to be a blank. So you can see here, the Fulham game at the very end of the column will move into game week 25. So it will be Spurs at home against Man United, Fulham away. Now, those managers right now that are thinking to themselves, oh my God, we got an opportunity here of, what is it called? Of a table bonus. I think we are not going to be in for luck here. Let me put up the table right now. Let me just quickly maximize this. So, guys, we can see here, anybody that is tempted, if we do get the double game week for Ange, you're not getting table bonus for that Man United game because they are right next to one another. So you're not getting table bonus for that, but you would get it for the Fulham game. But remember, it is away from home. On the other hand, what it is worth noting is if we get that double game week, Fulham are going to have a double in 25. And Fulham's double, as you can see around here, is going to be Nottingham Forest at home and then, of course, Spurs at home. Now, when we take a look at the Premier League table for Marco Silva here, the Nottingham Forest game at the time recording will be a table bonus. But of course, with Spurs being so far down, that one won't be a table bonus. So both managers have that potential of a table bonus. It's just which one you prefer. And I do think they are actually really, really good options. So that is worth considering if you have your assistant manager available currently on Moyes and you're looking to go to another manager. If we get the likely outcome of course, Liverpool progressing to the final and we have Aston Villa and Liverpool doubling, in game week 25, of course, Liverpool will have Wolves at home and then they'll have Aston Villa away. If you have Arne Slot as your manager, you keep it. But for Aston Villa, which you can see here, you will have Ipswich at home and then, of course, you will have Liverpool at home. So when we take a look again at the table, because we need to take into account the 5 places for the table bonus, Aston Villa here will have a table bonus against Liverpool at home, which is fantastic. Do we think we'll beat Liverpool? I don't think they will, but even if they get the draw, that will be 8 points. 3 for a draw, 5 for the extra bonus for table bonus. But of course, with Ipswich being at the bottom, that isn't a table bonus. You are just hopefully banking on a win and quite a favourable scoreline in that situation. So those are the potential outcomes. We do also have the Arsenal situation where if they progress to the final, they will double. If we look at Arsenal's fixtures, where are they? At the top there, Arsenal will have Leicester away and then they will have Chelsea at home as part of their double, which is really, really interesting. The problem is, of course, do we want to put the table bonus? Because, sorry, the assistant manager, because you don't have any table bonus. The Leicester game's good. The Chelsea game, they probably will beat Chelsea, but could it also be a banana skin? Potentially. So Arteta could be viable, but I think in game week 25, there's going to be more temptation to go to Unai Emery as an option if that Arsenal scenario does happen. So do keep all of that in your back of your minds on what is going on there. Do keep that in mind. So next up, I want to take a look, guys, at Trent. We got to talk about Trent right now because we need to talk about whether we need to buy him, to sell him or not. Now, first and foremost, he asked to go off basically. So it wasn't a case of, he's done any horrendous injury. I think it was a case of I can't carry on and we're hoping that it is only a minor situation. Now, the good thing about this right now with Liverpool is that their second part of the double is the 12th of February. So we've got 10 days until Trent has this game. Now, if I'm not mistaken, let me just quickly check on my phone a minute. Sorry, this is not ideal for you guys. I just want to quickly get up the Liverpool schedule because, of course, we have got FA Cup and we have got EFL Cup. So, on the 6th of February, we have got Liverpool versus Spurs. Then on the 9th of February, we got the Plymouth game in the FA Cup. And then we've got the Everton game 3 days later. So based on what we saw, I think we can rule out Trent for the game on Thursday, and we can rule him out for the Sunday game because that was always going to be a game that Trent was going to miss. So we have 2 game worth of information to understand how Trent is going to be in preparation for double game week 24. We can't change anything because we're in the middle of this double, so we just got to put our fingers crossed and hope he plays. But then, of course, 4 days later, they have got Wolves at home before Man City away in game week 26. So based on all of that right now, I don't think we should get worried about Trent. If you have him, absolutely keep him ahead of game week 25. It will be so stupid to sell him because if he rocks up in that Everton game fully fit, you then don't have him for the Wolves game. However, if we get to the double game week 24 with Everton and he has missed it, we then have to ask ourselves, do we need to move him out? Now, if they have a double game week 25 announced and it's touch and go for the Wolves game, I probably would just say sit tight and hope for the best. But we need to remember what we have in front of us. So in terms of defensive alternatives, if we get the double for 25 for Liverpool, I think it's a no-brainer. We put in Virgil van Dijk or Konate. I think you just have to have a piece of that Liverpool defence if you don't have it already. And you'll get Virgil van Dijk for Wolves at home and then potentially Aston Villa away, which I think just makes a lot of sense to go there. And of course, their fixtures afterwards aren't horrific. As long as they're at home, I think they are fine. Of course, if we get a really bad injury update regarding Trent, then Conor Bradley could be on the table. But based on what we've seen right now, I just don't think Trent's injury is going to be bad enough to think, oh, we can buy Conor Bradley. So I would rule out Conor Bradley in your teams. So I think Virgil van Dijk makes a lot of sense. If you can't afford him, then I think Konate is the next best. Only if they have the double. If they don't progress to the final, I would make the argument that you could just completely avoid Liverpool defence altogether. You wouldn't have them for the Wolves at home game, but they could easily concede in 26 and 27. And do I want a Liverpool centre-back who offers very little attack and returns for 2 single game weeks? Probably not. So in that case, I think we need to consider who would be our transfers in. So if we take a look at the fixtures right now over the next few weeks to understand who could we actually buy. Let me just bring that a bit better for you guys. Now, over the next 5 game weeks, and we also need to remember game week 29 is going to be a blank game week. So ideally, we don't buy anybody who could blank in game week 29. Bournemouth are one of those teams that don't. And I really do think Bournemouth are an interesting defensive pick. Southampton away is perfectly fine. Wolves at home, now that Cunha's back and feeling good, might be tougher than we first thought. Brighton away, Tottenham away, not ideal. And then Brentford at home in game week 29. It doesn't really matter what the fixture is in 29. If you don't plan on free hitting, a fixture is a fixture. End of the day, you would take it. So in terms of that, I do think there are Bournemouth defenders that we absolutely can consider. Now, if we filter it by Bournemouth right now, I think the obvious pick, if you have the money, and you will if you sell Trent, is going to be Kirkes. Offering attacking potential 100%, isn't leaving in January, one of those players that has been rumoured. And I think he's one of those that once you buy him, you can keep him for the foreseeable future. I wouldn't even be surprised if he continued to be a season keeper. But of course, it's all about your team structure at 4.9 million. Do you want that price point in your team? Otherwise, you can come down all the way to Dean Huijsen, however you pronounce it. 0.5 million cheaper. Yes, one would argue he doesn't have the attacking potential that Kirkes does have, but a player that you absolutely can bench whenever you want to. Whereas if you spend 4.9 million on Kirkes, I feel like in your gut, you're always going to want to play him each and every game week because of what he can do on that flank. And maybe this player, Dean Huijsen, is one of those that you could happily bench over this period, for example, even here if you wanted to. So that is something to consider when we are looking at alternatives. But remember, we ain't selling Trent at all unless the double doesn't get announced at 25 and he also gets bad news that he ruled out for a long time. Otherwise, I think we keep Trent. Just seeing what's going on here in the chat. Steamboat saying Adelanga, Martinelli and Robinson on the bench. Total nightmare. Alanga with a big return. Yeah, that is painful. That is a painful one. Nicholas saying 95 with Palmer, Gakpo, Salah, and Slot left over. Yeah, guys, let me know in the chat right now, how many players do you have left to play? I'll be super interested to know. I have got, as you can see on the screens, Pickford, Trent, Mykolenko, Palmer. We'll put Palmer in the equation. Salah, and I. So I've got 6, and I've got Arnie Slot to play as well. Let me know in the chat, how many players do you have left? I'll be really interested to know what everyone is going for. Fast AO say, the long water drinks are awkward. You should take shots of water. Yeah, honestly, I realise that. I kind of drink them. I have a little sip and I think to myself, what am I going to talk about next? And I realise from a watching perspective, you're probably thinking, bloody hell, just hurry up, mate. Andrew saying, loads of transfer talk, but a majority of us don't have none. Andrew, let me know, do you mean you don't have any transfers available to use, or you're not looking to make a transfer? Let me know. And S-Bam saying, Huijsen is a threat during corners, which I do agree. We have seen that potential in numerous game weeks, and he has been a bit of a double-digit machine at times, which is good to see. No, joking, mate. Yeah, no worries at all. Okay, I've kind of been all over the place today, dotting around with hot topics and stuff. So what we're going to do is this. We're going to go through my team, give you a bit of an idea on what my plans are, and then what we're going to do is open the floor up for you guys to steer the final part of this video and go through what hot topics you want answered. We've already covered Chris Wood, so I've said to you guys, I don't think he's worth buying, but absolutely keep him if you want to. And we've covered Trent, just keep him. We got 10 days, 12 days until the Game Week 25 deadline. Wait and see what happens. So we'll go through my team and then we'll go through those big parts as well. I can see a few points in here. So 103 for Formy FC, 5 players left, which is great. Steambo's got 93 with Pickford, Virgil, Adebayo, Palmer, Salah, and Diane Slot left. Fantastic. Gameweek was 5 to play, still solid. Andrew saying none left now till next game week. Okay. And see the stuff saying 83 with 5 left, plus Moyes, Gibbs White on the bench. Ugh. Well, Gibbs White on the bench, that is painful. But again, did anybody see that scoreline? I think they did not. Is Vardy out an option soon? Not after what we saw today from Man City. Not at all. And I do think with the fixtures coming up for Man City, you can see him here. Newcastle at home, I don't see a clean sheet. Then we got Liverpool at home in 26, don't see a clean sheet. Spurs away, absolutely not. Nottingham Forest away, no. I would not even consider a Man City player until game week 30. Game week 30 onwards, there is an opportunity maybe to jump onto Man City players. But until then, do not be doing it. Do not be doing it. I think it is too much pain and not worth the hassle at all. Right, let's go through my team a minute, because I know you guys are dying to know how I'm getting on. And what I want to quickly do is just check, has my live rank improved? So just going to give you an update. Before the Endai point got added, the extra bonus, I was 212k. It's a bit of a red arrow. With that Endai point, I know it's not on your screen, so it's going to update you. I'm now 207k. So that 1 point has jumped me 5,000 places, which is fantastic. And I do want to give a quick shout out actually to FPL, it's Live FPL, because this is a really good website. And the reason why I like it, I just want to quickly show you some of the things that I look at midweek. Shouldn't be looking at things like this, I appreciate, because things change during the double. But let me just quickly rattle through some of the things that I always look at. So obviously my points, and you can see here post subs and pre-subs. So right now that is going to be my rank 210. Sorry, I said 207. It's actually 210 with the subs. That doesn't look great. Obviously my old rank here. But what I always like to look at is I come down to this part and I look at this section here on the right hand side. So I look at this. How many number of fixtures have I got left compared to others? So I've got 12. Others have got 11. But the big thing is budget left to play. So it's all well and good of the managers having the same amount of games as you, but who are the actual players? I've got 48.9 million left to play. Overall, 31, and the top 10k have 41 million left to play. That's really important because the more budget you have left to play, the better players you have to play. So that isn't doom and gloom for my team. I am hoping we can overturn it. And really, the only thing that's going to hurt me now going forward is going to be Mo Salah. Because as you can see here, for anybody that doesn't know about effective ownership, we got the part here, which is 218%. So basically what that means this game week is because loads of managers triple captained, we've got a scenario where if you captained Mo Salah, it is actually negative towards your rank. Because when you captain a player, of course, anything below 200% is perfectly fine. Anything above 200% is a disaster. And that is what has happened this game week, and why those managers that didn't triple captain and actually use the assistant manager were praying that Mo Salah blanked. It was a weird situation to be in. And hopefully he doesn't deliver in the second part of this double because we haven't triple captained him. So let's go into my team right now and give you guys a bit of an update on what I am planning. So this is how the team is currently looking with no moves made. So we got 2 free transfers available. Of course, the assistant manager chip is active on slot, so I can't pick up another Liverpool outfield player. And I'm going on the assumption right now that Liverpool are going to progress to the final. Now, of course, we don't have a, thing to predict, but I'm just going off bookies odds right now. So if that scenario happens and Liverpool progress to the final, then we are going to get the double game week for Liverpool, which you can see has been input on the screens here. Wolves at home and Villa away. And the rest of my team kind of picks itself. Gabriel away against Leicester, Munoz at home against Everton, Semenyo, Gordon, Palmer, Salah, Eze, Vissa and Isak. And on the bench, Fabianski and Dye, Mikalenko, Vandenberg. Now again, this is why I don't want to rush to any transfers right now, because when we come down to the fixtures, if we are going to get Aston Villa at home against Ipswich, at home against Liverpool in a double, and then even at home against Chelsea, I can see the temptation maybe to try and bring in an Aston Villa player. And as a manager right now who doesn't have Morgan Rogers, if we do get the news that Eze is potentially ruled out for game week 25, a very easy move for my team could be Eze out and bringing in someone like Rogers. Very simple move, and it gives me a double game week here. While the Liverpool game isn't fantastic, I still think having a double game week player is important, and that Morgan Rogers ownership I think is going to be massive in double game week 25. So I will be very tempted to bring him in. I know a lot of people right now are talking about selling Alexander-Isak to bring in someone like Ollie Watkins if he does have the double. Now I totally get that, because Watkins with John Duran gone has guaranteed minutes. But after he went off injured in game week 24, we do need to take a little bit of a step back and understand, is he actually fully fit? So we need to remember that. And secondly, do we think Isak can't deliver in these games? Man City away is not a terrible fixture at all. Forest at home, I don't think is awful. Yes, Forest are good, but it's not terrible. The one real bad one, of course, is Liverpool away in game week 27. But then after that, West Ham, Brentford, Leicester, brilliant fixtures beyond that. And I really do think sometimes are we being a bit too smart trying to jump from Isak to Watkins, because I get it. When we take a look at Watkins here, again, remember he is yellow flagged. You will get these 2 games. Really, that's the good game, Ipswich. After that is not. But then, do we love these fixtures after that for an Aston Villa team who have been pretty damn woeful recently? I think if they're going to do well, of course, Ollie Watkins will be the one that delivers in those games. But I'm not seeing enough right now and have no confidence to bring in Ollie Watkins for Alexander-Isak. I'm more than happy just to keep Isak for the foreseeable future. So I have no temptation by Watkins. So really, if the game week happens as we're expecting, I probably would just leave my team like this, with Arne Slot as my assistant manager, Morgan Rogers with the double game week. I think the only other temptation is maybe getting rid of Gordon. However, we need to understand, City is not a bad fixture now, so that could be one to keep in the team. One to ponder, I don't think there is desperate moves to my team elsewhere. If Eze was the one that was potentially going to be available, let's say Eze was past fit, I would actually like to keep him. And in that situation, there would be a possibility for me to downgrade Gordon to Rodgers, and then the team might look like this. Again, we need to gain more information over the coming weeks. But again, I'd be happy with this team and probably roll the other transfer into game week 26 and then reassess going forward. Now, for those managers that may be asking about the assistant managership in game week 25, if Liverpool don't get the double, then yes, I do think I would use a free transfer to move Arne Slot on into another manager. Now, again, it depends what the fixtures are, but if Liverpool don't get to the final, then it means, of course, as I mentioned, Spurs and Fulham will have the doubles. Based on that, I think I would be tempted to go to Marco Silva because of the double that it has both at home. So I think I very easily could go down that route. It means that Morgan Rodgers then wouldn't be an option, of course, because he wouldn't have the double. And even though he has Ipswich, it's not enough for me to bring him in. And if Fulham were to have the double, I don't know if I want to dive into all of their players, but I wouldn't mind having the manager in my team. So again, something that I easily could do. I don't know why it's saying minus 0.3 there. I don't know what's happened to my team there, but something that I could easily do is get rid of that and bring in Marco Silva there as part of it. Ignore the bank, but that is another route that we could go for. He would have Forest at home, and then this Spurs game would jump into game week 25. That would be the route to go for. So those are some early thoughts, but the conclusion that I've come to is just chill. Just chill out, because we don't actually know what's going to happen right now, because we don't know what's going to happen in the EFL Cup situation. So that is where I'm currently leaning towards right now. I'm just going to put this back up on your screens right now, my current score. Let's get back into the chat here. So Sadus is saying, I'm a Liverpool fan, but for this one season only, would be okay with them getting tonked by Moyes. Can't be saying that as a Liverpool fan. That is blasphemy. Pickford assist, what an unexpected gift there. Yeah, I could not believe that in the first minute. Getting an assist for Pickford was delicious, to say the least. It was one of those where when you bring in a new player for a game week and they do something like that, you think to yourself, God, yes, that was worth it. That was worth it. City is okay for Isak, but we need Watkins probably. Now, again, I get it, but I just don't know if I can bring in. I don't know if I could bring in Ollie Watkins for Alexander-Isak in the form that Aston Villa are in right now. Fast saying Watkins to Cunha after the double. Yes, I could see that move being very popular at some point. MD saying, if we knew Watkins under-delivered versus Ipswich like he did against Leicester, nobody would look at him. Agree. Arsenal back strikers stick 5 past City. I'm happy to stay with Isak. Yes, I agree on that one. I think City are a team to be got at right now. It feels like City are taking 1 step forward, 2 steps back. They've had a little bit of a run, and then obviously they've had Champions League issues against PSG. Then they have another bit of a run, beat Chelsea, and we think to ourselves, oh, they're back. And then they get pumped against Arsenal. So very interesting right now what is going on with Man City. Silver in game week 25 is great for Forest at home. Table bonus, agree. He would be the one to go for if you are going to move the table, the assistant manager chip. Bu Bagley saying Palmer, Salah, triple captain, Trent, Gakpo left sitting on 92 points currently. Delicious. And Esbam saying 12 days before Villa play in the league again. By then they might have Asensio and Rashford. And yes, that is absolutely something we need to remember as well, because with Asensio and Marcus Rashford coming in, could that actually eat into some of the minutes of other players in the team? And a little bit of uncertainty. Now, I don't see a world where Morgan Rodgers loses any sort of game time. Maybe he might come off 10 minutes before the end, which we haven't really seen before, but there's no world where Morgan Rodgers loses game time over the next coming weeks. And I think we only really need Morgan Rodgers for game week 25 if he was to double. Okay, just seeing if I'm missing anything in the chat, which I don't think I am. So, guys, I'm going to open the floor up for the next 10 minutes or so. Any questions in the chat, please do put them in. As we mentioned, we've got the Fancy Football Fix site up. So if you want to deep dive into some players, let me know. We'll do that. If you are enjoying it, I see we got about 150 in the stream. If you wouldn't mind subscribing to the channel and dropping a like on the stream, it's always massively appreciated. We got the goal. There's always a goal on the channel, isn't there? To hit 20k before the end of the season. I think we're like 200 short. So if you guys aren't and you're enjoying it, it'd be awesome to have you on board for the back end of the season. There's still plenty to go. what is that, like 13 game weeks still left to go? So loads and loads of time still to play out. What have I missed here? Mike saying, when is the next best week to use assistant manager I triple captained in game week 24? Yes. So I think if you haven't used your assistant manager in game week 24, coming into game week 25, we know there is going to be a double game week regardless. And we've already touched on that. There's going to be a double for either Liverpool and Villa, or there's going to be a double for Spurs and Fulham. Or we could see, if Arsenal overturn the game against Newcastle, Arsenal and Chelsea doubling. Well, Arsenal doubling. So I don't think there is a right answer right now in terms of when you use your assistant manager chip. But I do think game week 25 is actually quite an intriguing time. I don't mind that sort of reasoning. Going down that route with the assistant manager, let me get up here. Again, this is FPL team in collaboration with Planet FPL. So I like the idea of using the assistant manager in game week 25 and then having opportunities of the table bonus in 26 and in game week 27. I like that opportunity. Otherwise, I think the assistant manager chip needs to be used in a double game week. So the only other time that you can do so really is going to be game week 33, or you hold off all the way and you use it right at the end of the season on single game weeks, which absolutely is a good strategy as well. I, for one, am really, really annoyed that this double game week 25 happened, because I love having loads of chips at the back end of the season to use. And I love the idea of having assistant manager from game week 35 to 37 and climbing up the ranks. So I feel like, on reflection, I think a lot of us maybe rushed to use the assistant manager chip. But of course, it's all very much short-term bias right now. All it takes is a double game week in 25 for somebody who's got Arne Slot or jumps off from Moyes, and we get a mega haul and we look back and say it was the optimal time to do so. As of right now, we don't really know what the right answer is for the assistant manager chip, but we know there's a double in 25, and I do think there is opportunity to play it in that week. Heather's in only come across this now. Subscribed and liked evening. Heather, thank you so much. Hope you are doing well. Thank you for subscribing. MD saying, do you think Bournemouth attack is similar to Man United's attack in game week 27 and 29? I think the Bournemouth attack is better than the United attack myself. We saw that against Liverpool in that game. Let me get up some of the numbers right now. Let me just get this up for you guys, because that is another good thing about the Fix site, is we can deep dive into specific games. So like, for example, Forest versus Brighton here, we can take a look at who had the highest XG. Chris Wood, obviously top of the table with 3 goals and 4 shots. But in terms of the actual teams, obviously only 6 goals scored from Forest, because one of those was an own goal from Brighton. But we had an XG of Forest from 3.46 and Brighton at 0.87. Brighton are really struggling right now. But as you mentioned, Bournemouth versus Liverpool, what were those numbers like? Because of course, when you look at this, you think to yourself, this was a pretty easy game for Liverpool. Now, when we come down to the numbers right now, 2.62 expected goals for Liverpool, which is really, really good. But Bournemouth putting up 1.8 expected goals is also equally really good. 14 shots opposed to Liverpool's 19. When we take a look at the shot volume for players, of course, Semenyo tops it. Anybody that's been following any of the numbers this season knows that Semenyo is the definition of all fart, no poo. He has all of the shots, very little on target. And you can see that once again, 6 shots, only 2 of those on target. That is just the definition of Semenyo. But as you can see, people like Alexander-Arnold cropping up here, fantastic numbers as well. So really, really good for these players. In terms of the other games, I think we've covered off a lot of them. If you want another one put up on the screens, please do let me know. Jemima saying, what defenders do you like from now until game week 29? Hall, Trent, Milenkovic all have issues for me. Well, I think we covered this off in the fixture difficulty section. Now, of course, game week 29 will be a blank, so we do need to take that into consideration. If we filter this on defense difficulty, I think Crystal Palace is still good. We saw that against Man United. Munoz still remains a fantastic pick, picking up spots in the team like a forward almost. Let me just get this up for you a minute. I'll check if the data's been uploaded yet for the Palace game. So you can see the heat map here for Crystal Palace. If you look at the average positions here, not as high as what we usually see from Munoz, which is quite interesting. But Munoz just is a joke, really. The places that he picks up, 0.58 expected assists, 0.11 expected goals. Usually his numbers are way better than that. Really good on the bonus points as well. So he is fantastic and one to keep an eye on, Munoz. I also think someone like a Kirkes or a Huijsen, as we mentioned, are great picks as well long term. I can't be recommending Man United or Wolves or even Brentford defenders. Beardy, hope you're doing well, mate. Big green arrow, needed that after a few weeks. A red arrow's quality work, mate. And Sok Ha is saying, Moyes' assistant manager did 3 triple captain in game week 2. Better luck next week on that one. Bruno, hope you're well, mate. Question on assistant manager table bonus. Do they take position at the start of the game week or just before the second game? I.e., if someone wins their first game and move closer than 5 games apart, what happens? So my understanding is, if we have a double game week, they take into account whatever the positioning is at the start of the game week. So, for example, Liverpool's double this week, which was against Bournemouth and then against Everton. If there was a situation where Everton were, 5 places above Liverpool in a parallel universe, and then after that Bournemouth game, they would close the gap to 3, it still would be a 5 table bonus because we're still within that game week. That is my understanding right now. Before the deadline, whatever positions they're in, they don't get changed during that game week. Once we've ended the game week and we move into the following one, then of course it resets to whatever the table is. That is my understanding on that one, mate. And if I've chatted rubbish, then yes, I may be lying there, but I'm pretty confident that is how it is looking right now. The Banjan saying, I have Trent, Salah and Gakpo. If Liverpool get a double in 25, would it be wise to replace Trent with a double game week defender if he isn't fit and replace Moyes with Slot for a hit? Yeah, so if he isn't fit, we're all going to be selling Trent, I think, because you're going to want to capitalise on a third Liverpool spot with that double up. I get it. Instead of maybe doing that route, you could always go Trent to a Liverpool defender and just get coverage in that team and then use the other one to replace Moyes. But I don't mind what you recommend. And again, it's all ifs and buts right now. We don't even know who is going to get the double. So I think we just sit tight, see what happens, mate, because if Trent is fit, then we have no problems whatsoever. To hear saying, what are your plans if Arsenal beat Newcastle in the League Cup? Yeah, so this is really interesting. If anyone doesn't know, if Arsenal get to the final, as you can see on your screens here of Arsenal's fixtures, they'll have Leicester away and Chelsea at home. And then, of course, Chelsea will have a double of Brighton away and Arsenal away. So Chelsea fixtures aren't ideal, but there is some good stuff in the Arsenal fixtures. Now, what players do I like from Arsenal to justify going there? Not many. And we also need to look beyond that. West Ham at home in game week 26, not bad at all. Forest away, Man United, I don't think that's too bad. But then I think there will be an expectation that they will then blank in game week 29. Now again, I'm not going to come to any conclusions right now because we don't really know what the landscape looks like. And it depends who's going to be in that final. If we get the most unlikely situation of Arsenal Spurs Cup final, which isn't out the realms of possibility, then we will have Arsenal doubling in 25 alongside Chelsea and Spurs doubling alongside Fulham. That would be carnage, and I'm going to be honest, I have no idea what I would do if that does happen, but I kind of hope that does happen, as it really will throw a spanner in a lot of plans out there, and sometimes you need that chaos in the game to make it really interesting. I was saying, I really want Mateta. I've been humming and hawing about him for 3 or 4 weeks now. Yes, we spoke about Mateta. If you own him, you've had an unbelievable run, and I think it can continue. Do I think you should rip up your teams to bring him in? Probably not. But I do think he is still a good buy if you've got an injured forward. I can't think of many, though, apart from Watkins, and I still would wait and see on someone like Ollie Watkins. And SBAM saying Clive likely to rise tonight for those who are thinking of getting him in, by the way. By the way, until the FL Cup semi-finals are played. SBAM is correct. Ignore all price changes. Now, what I will do is put them up for you, just to be that kind of guy. This is taken off Fancy Football Fix. We have got tonight Clive, Kanate and Gakpo going up, potentially. Going down is Gordon and then some players I've never heard of. Wolvenden and Gauki? No idea. What I will say is this. I'm somebody who has Gordon right now, and I haven't even considered selling him with this price drop. There is just too much information to learn. What if I sold Gordon to Brian Mbeumo this week, going into game week 25, and we get all of the craziness that's going to come with the double game week? I might sell to Mbeumo, and then all of a sudden, Rodgers becomes a pick if Aston Villa double. If Spurs double, Kulusevski becomes a pick. If Arsenal double, Declan Rice becomes a pick. So we can't really come to any conclusions right now. And that's why I think we should hold off on any transfers right now. As I was saying, who are you selling, guys, next so I can buy them? Yes, that is it. That is exactly how it works out in FPL. More Trent could be doing well. Right. Unfortunately, I think we're going to have to wrap it up there because it is a school night and I do need to make sure I go to bed on time tonight. Now, what I will be doing is probably dropping a transfer plans video tomorrow morning just to go through my thought process on the coming game weeks. What I will say is it's going to be hard to pin down a plan because there's so much uncertainty. So my advice is this. Enjoy the double game week. There's nothing we can do now for a while. So enjoy the double, chill out, log off FPL for a couple of days, maybe even a week, treat yourselves. And then come back once we had the EFL Cup games and then we can start to make a plan for our teams. I think I probably will drop another video on Thursday evening or Friday morning once we got the double game week 25 announcement and a bit of an understanding on exactly what we need to do with our teams. So that's the plan. Thank you as ever for tuning in. If you can, drop a like on the stream. It's always massively appreciated. If you're not already, subscribe to the channel would be awesome. Take care, guys. Have an amazing evening, night, wherever you are in the world, and I will see you probably in tomorrow's video. Take care, guys. Cheers.